Welcome to another episode of UreMusic Mentor, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of music theory, ear training, and beyond. I'm Kevin Yore, and today we're exploring a topic that's both challenging and incredibly rewarding for musicians: the ability to hear every note in a chord. Today I'm going to talk about some exercises, techniques, and solutions to help you get more out of your daily ear training pursuits. Have you ever listened to a complex chord and wondered how some musicians can identify each individual note? So they hear a chord, it's this mesh of sound, it's just this homogeneous sound. How do they extract the individual notes from that chord? This skill is a chord member extraction technique, and it is not only impressive, but also incredibly useful for composers, arrangers, performers, and music lovers. And the good news about it is that you can develop this skill really quite quickly. It's not as hard as you would think. It's actually not as hard as learning to identify a perfect fifth or a fourth or a major triad or a minor triad. It just requires a little bit of exposure, and once you hear it, it becomes really easy to develop. So let's start by understanding what it means to hear every note in a chord. When we hear a chord, we're actually hearing multiple notes played simultaneously. The ability to distinguish each note involves a combination of pitch recognition, harmonic understanding, and a well-trained ear. So hearing every note, it means that instead of hearing this mesh of sound that just kind of all blends together, you can hear every note that, let's say, a pianist is playing on the keyboard. So if they play a C, E, and G, it creates a major quality. You can actually separate that major quality and break it down into individual notes. One effective method is interval training. So you can develop the skill through a proper interval training technique. My Flawless course teaches you this, but very briefly, by recognizing the intervals, by practicing the recognition of intervals, which is the distance between two notes, you can gradually improve your ability to hear and identify the individual notes in a chord. So one of the things you can do is you can just take two fingers and hit two notes on the piano fairly close together. And you listen for the bottom note. You try and get in there. You really listen for it. When you think you have it, play it as many times as you need to, but don't play the note by itself. Play it as part of an interval. Once you can hear that bottom note, try and sing it. Then play the note on the piano. Once you've done that, once you've heard it and verified whether you got it correct or not, whether you got it right or wrong, at this point, then what you do is you go in and you play that interval again and again. And what you're doing here is, now that you know what note you're listening for, you're trying to make that bottom note stronger and stronger, because you can actually pay attention, put your attention on individual notes of an interval and bring them out. You'll notice that as you do this, that bottom notes get stronger and stronger. And then you do it with a top note as well. This is an effective interval training tip that will help to open up your ear a little bit and help you to extract notes eventually in a chord much more easily. But we start with two notes. So another technique is to practice with simple triads and gradually move to more complex chords. So you can start with major and minor triads. If you don't know how to create triads, then you may end up doing some diminished triads as well. But what you can do is, on the white keys of the piano, just skip a note. So if you have one white key, skip the next one, hit the one after that, skip the next one, hit the one after that. So you have 5 white keys in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Play white key 1, 3, and 5. You'll create a chord. It'll either be major or minor. It could be diminished as well, as you play the B, if the B is the root of your chord. But it doesn't really matter. What you do is you just play these chords and you unlock them. First, start in the middle of the keyboard. Once you can do that, move to the outer sides of the keyboard, and then try and do the really low and really high register. You'll find those are even more difficult. So this will actually help you start to hear inside chords more effectively. And this is something that you should really only have to practice for 5 minutes a day, maybe 10 minutes a day, and you'll start to feel that your ear is actually opening up quite well. It's also helpful to use a keyboard to play and analyze chords. So by visualizing the notes on a keyboard, you can reference your auditory skills in a more clear way, and you'll get a clear reference to what you're hearing. So if you know the notes of the piano and you know that you're going to play the notes C, E, and G, you can actually visualize the C, E, and a G on a piano while playing the chord, and then try and hear what that C, E, and G sounds like in context. So essentially what you're doing is you're trying to visualize the piano when you play these chords. Just this association with something physical can really help you with your ear training. Chord dissection is really what we're talking about here. So let's talk about one more little technique you can do. You can play a chord melodically, bum, 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 and that means just skipping a white key on the piano, and then try and sing each note individually. So you go bum on the piano, and then you'll sing it bum, and hold it out for a little bit. Then sing the next note, bum, and then hold it out for a little bit, bum, and then hold it out. This trains your ear, but it also strengthens your vocal control and pitch accuracy. So what I recommend when you do this is just hold that bottom note out for as long as you can. Take a big breath. See how long you can hold it. Time yourself even. Make it a game. And see how long you can hold that pitch. Then when you run out of breath and you have to stop, right before you stop, play the note on the piano again and see if you maintain the pitch. If you maintain the pitch, you're doing really well. If not, more practice is all you need. Ear training apps, you could use those. So another exercise is to use ear training apps or software that provide instant feedback. These tools can be useful for tracking your progress and identifying areas that need improvement. The only problem with this is ear training apps tend to throw everything at you all at once. Earmaster is pretty good in that it starts by just identifying a low versus a high note, or a bigger interval versus a smaller interval, and then it moves on to perfect fifths and fourths and things like that. But the sound quality lacks some of the overtones you'd hear in real music. So when you try and translate that to real music, you start to get confused. The other thing is it strips some of the sound of the tone. So you're not getting the pure tone on a lot of these apps. So it's better to take an ear training course from somebody that's actually playing, even on an electric piano. Acoustic piano's great as well, but something that has some resonance and replicates what you hear in the real world. So that's really important. Ear training apps can also get in the way though. Like if you're taking something like my flawless ear training course, it can get in the way of you developing your ear, because in a course like mine, those exercises and lessons are graded intentionally. They're very carefully constructed. You do one thing before the next, and you don't go on to a more advanced session before you've accomplished a previous session. So they're consecutive and meant to be taken that way. So if you start doing ear training on another app or doing more advanced techniques, you're actually making the effectiveness of the flawless course, and probably most guided courses like this, you're probably making it a little less effective. So it's better to find something that's all encompassing and just go with that. Oh, thank you. I didn't know that I was going to get applause so soon. So remember, like any musical skill, developing the ability to hear every note in a chord takes time and consistent practice. Just be patient with yourself and celebrate small victories. Remember, every day you do your ear training, especially if you do them on consecutive days, you're just opening up your ear a little bit more, a little bit more. I had somebody who emailed me and said, they finally passed quiz 3. They took 26 times. I'm like, yeah, that's fantastic, because that person's ear is now better. And in future lessons, they'll go faster. It won't always take 26 times to pass an exercise. But what that person did was really develop their working memory, because they probably memorized the drill somewhat, and they improved their ear. And so now the rest of the level should go easier for them. So it's really important to just don't worry about how well you do. Just be honest with yourself, go day by day, and you will get better as you go. More applause? This is crazy. I gotta stop that. So that's all for today's episode of UreMusic Mentor. I hope you found these tips and techniques helpful. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. leave a message, send an email to kevin@UreMusic.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Until next time, keep practicing and keep exploring the wonderful world of music. This is Kevin Ure signing off. I will see you in the next episode.